Jesse Dubell. We're here talking about the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's proposal to open 900 new hunting and fishing units across the United States, including some here in New Mexico. And the agency's press release last week called it the single largest expansion of hunting and fishing opportunities in the agency's history. It'll expand big game and migratory bird hunting down at Bitter Lake near Roswell. And at Bosque del Apache, the changes are a little bit more extensive. Can you talk about what's allowed at Bosque del Apache now and what would change under this new proposal?
Well, currently there are some managed hunting programs, primarily for waterfowl, that already exist in Bosque del Apache. Under the new proposal, it would actually enhance the number of species being able to be pursued on the refuge. That would include big game such as javelina and also oryx. Also, additional acres are being proposed to be included in the managed hunting program.
For many of us who have been to Bosque del Apache, we're accustomed to thinking about the refuge in terms of sandhill cranes and snow geese or Ross's geese. What waterfowl species are hunted there?
Well, currently, I think the big draw, the big attraction is obviously the sandhill cranes, because they're just such a magnificent waterfowl species. But there's a plethora of waterfowl that exist there, and hunting opportunities for some of those will be increased, which would include wood ducks, mallards, mergansers, any number of different waterfowl species that currently use the refuge as a critical wildlife habitat.
In the announcement, the Interior Secretary Bernhardt and the head of the Fish and Wildlife Service explained this expansion of opportunities as a celebration for the Trump administration's successful elimination of COVID-19, looking ahead to the fall hunting season. But is this something that New Mexico sportsmen have been anticipating for a while or waiting to happen?
It's something we've really wanted to happen. This particular administration has been very good when it comes to the hunting programs on the National Wildlife Refuges. And it's something that the sportsmen and women of New Mexico are very appreciative of. There's other refuges that we would still like to see additional hunting access opportunities increased on, like Cebolleta Wildlife Refuge. But this is something that hunters in New Mexico are extremely excited about.
And how many sportsmen are there in New Mexico? I know your group represents a certain number, but estimating how many sportsmen are there in the state who would be taking advantage of opportunities like this?
Well, that's a great question, Lauren. I would be guessing to give you a number, although I would have to say that we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of sportsmen in this state. And not only that reside in the state, but people come from other states to take advantage of the wonderful outdoor recreation opportunities in New Mexico. Neighboring states like Texas just don't have the type of public land opportunities that exist here. So there's a huge economic benefit to what New Mexico provides when it comes to access to nature and the outdoors.
I think sometimes when people hear a National Wildlife Refuge, we think of it as a place where animals hang out and are kind of undisturbed. Can you talk about why hunting and fishing is something that's a part of the refuge system?
Absolutely. Hunting and fishing essentially funds the refuge system, was the original funding mechanism to create these places. So the National Wildlife Refuge System is really a result of efforts by hunters and anglers, sportsmen and women across the country. So hunting is certainly an appropriate activity to exist on these refuges. And they are refuges, but a lot of times I think people think that a refuge is a place where animals can escape from hunters. The reality is the refuge is designed to provide a habitat, because human development, fragmentation of habitat, roads and subdivisions, industrial activities have destroyed so much wildlife habitat that we've had to create a funding mechanism to preserve places for these animals to exist. And the Pittman-Robertson Act of 1937, the Dingell-Johnson Act, the Federal Duck Stamp Program, all of these programs are ways that hunters contribute dollars to purchase these properties and manage these properties and ensure that we have a sustainable wildlife population to pass on to future generations. One thing that's important for people to understand is that anymore, nothing exists by accident. If you drive across New Mexico and see pronghorn antelope, they're not there by accident. They're there because we've made a conscious decision to manage that population of wildlife with sustainable use. And speaking of management, earlier we were talking about the increased hunting opportunities in Bosque del Apache. Some species like javelina, for example, they can be very destructive to ground nesting birds and various plant habitats and things like that. And so hunting is a necessary management tool in these wildlife refuges. And it's a very managed program. So there certainly are rest periods where wildlife is given the opportunity to hang out there and be available for all non-consumptive users to come and enjoy.
Dusty Duval, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Laura. It's always great to see you.
John Horning, Wild Earth Guardians. I checked in with conservationists around the state, and it seems like there's pretty widespread support for this proposal. Your thoughts on this plan?
I think it's a step in the wrong direction. I understand that refuges were created originally by hunting interests who saw a need to protect habitat of waterfowl in particular. First refuge created by Teddy Roosevelt within different times. Hunting and fishing are on the decline. Most Americans' relationship to wildlife is one where they understand that wildlife have intrinsic value. Even wildlife that are not endangered deserve habitat and refuge from hunting pressures in particular. So I think it's a step in the wrong direction. It's a step that is similar to many the Trump administration has taken to serve an increasingly smaller amount of the American public. So I'm discouraged. We'll be commenting on it and potentially challenging it as well.
So we're talking about Bitter Lake Refuge and also Bosque del Apache here in New Mexico. I'm wondering if you've looked at the proposal and have any concerns about those two refuges in particular, or other species or ecosystems that would be affected in these 900 units across the nation.
For Guardians, obviously, New Mexico is where we got our start. So there's a particular interest in the refuges in New Mexico that would be opened up to new hunting or greater access to hunting. But we also have an interest in all the refuges. As you noted, there's some 900 refuges. It's 2.5 million acres. As Barnhart proudly noted in his press release on this, it's an area the size of Delaware. Yeah, I just think that in a, not just for Bosque del Apache and Bitter Lake, but for all these refuges, in a time of climate crisis and a time where we're losing habitat, especially wetland, open water habitats, it doesn't make sense to increase pressure on even fairly common animals. So I don't think it's something that, while this administration clearly supports it, ecologists would support, because, as I said, we're only seeing greater pressure on habitats and species. So it goes against sort of a common sense grain of thought that we should be protecting what limited areas do provide refuge for fish and wildlife from all kinds of threats, including hunting. Let me be clear. I'm not a hunter. I'm fine with hunting. Hunting occurs on all kinds of public lands, and I think that's fine to a large degree. We don't support hunting of native carnivores, but hunting for food and is totally acceptable. You know, you can rebuild laws easily, or reestablish laws through court victories and hopefully a new administration. But rebuilding the morale and the integrity of agencies, that's a difficult challenge.
Well, John Horning, Wild Earth Guardians, thank you for joining the show this week.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.